We work with life science, academia, and government, and intellectual property companies. And I look after two products. I look after Cortellis Competitive Intelligence, which is all about competitive landscape for drug development, and also BioWorld, which is news, events, interviews, analysis for biopharma, medical technology, Asia, and early science. So how I got my start is selling market research studies. I did that for a company called Frost & Sullivan. I was inside sales, and I started hearing people talk about their need for more detailed epidemiology for market sizing. And so not long after that, I started up a business with two partners, and we published the Incidence and Prevalence Database, which did exactly that. And then in 2013, we sold the business to Thomson Life Sciences, and that became Clarivate. It's a short flight for me. I live right in Santa Cruz, California. And earlier this year, I got an email from my boss saying that he wanted me to speak at this presentation. And so I'm looking through all the details, and I see that the title of this track was The Future of Saving Humankind. And that sounded kind of like a big deal to me. So I got on the phone and started talking to people who were smarter than me. And one of them said, you might need a cape to answer a question like that. I don't have a cape, so I kept talking to people. And eventually I started talking with people outside our industry. And it was there that I got the inspiration about how to start this. It was looking through their lens at drug development and the magnitude of it, the epic journey that a drug makes from discovery on its way out to all of us. It's treacherous and it's costly. So in a report by Deloitte, they estimated, looking at the top pharmaceutical companies, that the cost had risen to $2.3 billion to bring a drug to market. And I'm sure probably a lot of you guys are aware of that already, but for these people, it was mind-boggling how much that cost. And it was a reminder to me that it's untenable. And then there's the time that it takes. In my role, I get to see a lot of drugs early on in development. And some of them look very promising to people that I know. But I know even if they're successful, it might be a decade or more before they have any benefit from it. So there's the time and there's the cost. But the clincher for these folks was when I told them that out of 7 drugs in phase 1, or out of 8 drugs in phase 1, 7 will fail. So 7 out of 8 drugs fail, and with them, all the cost and the resources that were invested are gone. There's a huge cost to failure, and their assumption was that it all fell on the shoulders of the biopharma companies, which we know is not true. We end up all splitting the bill in the form of higher drug prices. And that's just the money stuff. I think maybe the higher cost is the loss of 7 potential drugs that we will never see the benefit of making their way out to us. We need AI to help us choose early on the drugs that are going to benefit us. So I'm going to pause just for a second and tell you a story because I think it captures a little bit the gestalt that I'm feeling around AI right now. Takes place back in the 90s, and I'm in an office in Cupertino, California with my 2 partners. We're standing in front of a table stacked with paper, and these guys are pretty successful. One's a computer engineer. He worked on the first optics for PC mouses, and the other guy is a PhD scientist, info guru. He's out of a company called Sidtex that was acquired by Roche. And we're in front of this table, we're taking the paper, we're packing it into binders, and then we're packing the binders into boxes, taping it up. And then like something out of the Flintstones, we're shipping the boxes off to our clients, and that's our product. And then .com happens, and then suddenly the internet is available to a lot more people than just the techies. And within 10 years, our box becomes a searchable database on the web. And our clients who literally used to have to walk down to their library in the building to use the product or call an info pro to get the data for them, now had access to a searchable database on the web. So it was a huge impact for us. But there was a sea change across the board. Things were happening everywhere. There was a lot of uncertainty. And there were some conversations that were happening that might sound familiar. Things like, this is going to destroy our future. Where are our jobs going to go? It's going to destroy our privacy. And then the other camp, which was, oh, finally something that's going to solve all of our problems. And then a few people that were saying things like, well, it might be good for email, a couple things like that. That's about it. But there was profound change happening. Things were happening fast. And what was clear was that we were not going to be going back. So big data. I wonder what your reaction is to those two words. I know I get tired of it. And the good news is that you don't have to worry about it anymore, because now we get to worry about monster data together. In a report by RBC Capital, they said that out of the world's entire generated data, 30% of it comes from healthcare. And they estimated that that was 26 zettabytes. And that in 2025, it was going to double. And I said, whoa, a zettabyte, what's a zettabyte? So here we go. A terabyte can fit 85 million printed documents, which would fill not 5, not 10, but 20 trucks. If you like movies and you don't like to sleep, you could watch your favorites for 24/7, day and night for 20 days straight. So it's pretty big. A zettabyte is 1 billion terabytes. So somewhere in that 26 billion terabytes, actually 52 in 2 years, is the answer to the question that you're asking. We really do have to commit to more advanced tools. So I have a friend, and he told me that the last remaining jobs are going to be in stand-up comedy. So I was curious, and so I asked my chat app for this presentation, tell me a joke about someone who doesn't fully commit. So here we go. The joke is, why did the chicken only partially cross the road? Because it was afraid to fully commit to the other side. So 3 things here. 1 is a horrible joke. 2 is, I'm not going to be getting one of the last remaining jobs in stand-up comedy, obviously. And number 3 is that my friend's comment is also a joke, but we can't get caught with a foot on the boat, one on the dock, looking down at 52 billion terabytes. We have to commit to advanced data-driven intelligence, just not to drown. So 6 years ago at Clarivate, we committed. We put together a team of data scientists, industry experts, some PhDs, a couple of our larger clients, and our intent was to create a true predictive analytic tool with machine learning. And by true, I mean that it wouldn't be based on any kinds of conventional wisdom like benchmarking. There was that stuff available. And we're in a really unique position for projects like this because we own literally billions of proprietary interrelated data points. And less than 3 years later, we launched the drug timeline and success rate tool, which is now patented. And when people ask me what it is, I say that rather than taking a small slice of data that looks like what we need for a forecast, this tool uses everything with any data trait that looks like it has been measured to improve accuracy for the tool. So when our brains are facing monster data, they tend towards benchmarking. We have some people at Clarivate who are fantastic at benchmarking. They can take really large data sets, hone it down to a relatively small amount of data that includes all the nuanced criteria that they're looking for and create very elaborate forecasts. They're experts at extrapolating based on a small amount of data. Our tool, on the other hand, uses all of the available data on Clarivate's Cortellis intelligence platform, 23 years. So over 520,000 clinical trials, 130,000 deals, 250,000 company profiles, 90,000 drugs from discovery to launch, 11 million patents and more, and it's growing. And this tool does it every day, where our brains want that small slice of data that looks like what it needs. These tools are hungry for as much data as they can get. So on the bottom left-hand side of the slide here is what we call our swim lane, and it's a linear presentation of a prediction from phase 1 through pre-registration. And so it shows where the drug is today, along with its milestones, and then the predicted date of transition, along with a confidence interval, And underneath each phase is a predicted success rate for it moving from one phase to the next. It also includes overall success rate and timeline. So when we first launched it, we measured the predictions against actual outcome, and we did that alongside benchmarking. And what we found is that it was 25% more accurate overall than benchmarking. We do this every year, and last year we found that with machine learning and with the continued enhancements that it actually had increased to over 40% more accurate. On the left-hand side, you'll see what we call our horse race. All drugs are in a race to launch. And so this represents that with any drug search, you see the drugs alongside each other and their relative timelines and success. So an interesting challenge when I'm talking with clients about these kinds of tools is what's driving a prediction. So what we've done is we've taken all 100 plus data traits and we've grouped them into distinct, what we call success indicators. And so for each prediction, we can tell them for each relevant success indicators, what we're calling, what's positively, negatively, or neutrally influencing the prediction. In addition, we include a historical overview. And basically what that is the current context for the drug. What are the actuals, actual timeline, actual success, and in this case, entity type as well. So just to illustrate a little bit, I have two examples here. Two drugs in acute myelogenous leukemia. This first drug we predicted would launch February 2023. It actually launched less than 3 months earlier before. And you can see all of the success indicators are pointing in a positive direction. In contrast, the second drug we predicted only had a 5% probability of success. And it remains in phase 2, and you can see all the drivers, the success indicators are pointing in a negative direction. So we have this really experienced team looking at our predictive analytics and looking after our drug prediction tool, and we wanted to move into the deal space. So 2 years ago, we launched our deal predictive analytic tool. And it's a little bit different in that rather than predicting for a specific drug, it's predicting value for a potential deal. So just to describe that, we have an example here. We made a prediction back in 2021 for a large hematologic molecule in preclinical that would be sold by a large pharmaceutical company. And we predicted the total value would be $213 million. In Deals Intelligence, you'll find an actual deal that was signed May 2022 between Sanofi and Rallybio, and the same criteria and the value was $196 million. On the right-hand side, you can see what the prediction actually is. We're predicting for total value for total paid, upfront paid by phase, and then to the right of that is the success rate for an asset within that kind of deal, whether it's going to move from phase to phase. You can search the tool, by the way, by company type, actual buyer name, deal type, entity type, search by therapy, and even drill down into indications, and it has some regional breakout as well. So Clarivate has a complete portfolio for life science intelligence. We can follow a drug from discovery through launch, post-launch, but we also have some unique strength with real-world data. Have some folks here, love to talk to you about that. They recently did a project, interesting project for a client where they took billing codes, treatment and diagnostic and procedure billing codes, and they applied machine learning and created this trained model that could predict at a facility level where there were potential patients. And so not only were they predicting opportunity for the client, but also where there were patients that potentially needed their treatment. And that's just one example of what we can do with real-world data. So at this point, I don't see these tools, models as completely replacing conventional wisdom like benchmarking and so forth. But what they do is they add new efficiencies and understanding that we didn't have before. If a drug or deal is going to phase, we want it to happen quickly. We want fast failure. And these tools are like an accelerant for that. A way for us to go after the high costs and the timeline, but maybe even more importantly, to be able to choose early on those drugs that are going to be more successful, that will actually benefit us. They're already a competitive advantage for our clients, and facing monster data, there really is no way around these kinds of tools just to keep up, much less compete. So our own BioWorld reported that a company, Anumana, had just received a breakthrough device designation for one of their devices. Really kind of a cool tool. It used an EKG-based algorithm to predict early on cardiac amyloidosis. Getting a designation like this is a big deal, just one for any company. This is their fourth. In 2015, there were 26 AI-based devices approved by the FDA. In 2021, there were 115 approved. In another study I read in Neuroscience News, they were talking about this natural language processing model that they had created that actually diagnosed Parkinson's patients. And it did so with 80% accuracy. And what it found was really interesting, that Parkinson's patients use less nouns and less filler words, and not an obvious connection. And it's unobvious connections like this and breakthroughs like that device that are happening. They're happening more and more. And they're being built on faster and faster towards what I like to think of as a kind of learning resonance. It's another tipping point, like back in the 90s that I was describing with my company that took our product out of a box and put it on the web. It's something that's, I get that you all are listening to. I mean, you're here in Las Vegas, so that's self-evident. And I just want you all to know that at Clarivate, we're listening too, and we see some opportunities for big leaps ahead for our tools. So I'm at the end here, and I just wanted to get myself a free coffee, and I'll explain. I told my family that I was going to be doing this presentation, not something I typically do, as you can probably notice. And my daughter pipes up and she said, Dad, if you say anything from any of the Terminator movies, I'll buy you coffee when you get home. And so if I said something like, the future has not been written, which is Terminator 3, I will be getting a free mocha at Cat and Cloud, one of my favorite cafes in Santa Cruz. And I can predict that you, if you go to booth 402, you'll get some coffee from a nice person who'd love to talk to you about any of our wares, our capabilities at Clarivate, including real-world data, by the way, or any of our tools. So anyway, I'll be hanging out if anyone wants to connect. I really appreciate your time today. Thanks very much.